Hello, everybody. I'm going to have 5 minutes to talk to you about what it means when we say de-personalised data. My name is Mark Kewley, and many of you will have seen me from the last weekend. And it is just so exciting and inspiring to be back here with you. We started the first weekend as strangers, and it's actually really wonderful to sort of look around the room and see, familiar faces, and also to be in this particular venue and building. So, County Hall is the sort of seat, the historical seat of policymaking in London. And as you walk through the rooms where the coffee is, you'll see two buildings out the window, St Thomas's Hospital and Parliament. And I guess that really sort of grounds what this is about, right? Two things. We're trying to make healthcare better, and we're trying to think about different democratic discussions. Not trying to replace big P politics, but making participation in these sorts of discussions a really in-depth, wide and diverse way of augmenting politics so that we get the right types of policy input. So we talked previously last weekend about, the last time we met, about how fragmented care records are. And I talked about the technology existing to join that together. And I'm part of a programme that's attempting to do that. It's the OneLondon Programme. But I also said just because we could doesn't mean we should. And there are a whole range of points of valid debate that we need you to get into with a civic-minded approach to help us understand what we should do for and on your behalf. I also promised you last time that the complicated and contentious stuff was still to come. And somehow the newspapers were listening, because these are stories from literally the sort of following week. And you've got copies of these on your table, so I won't go into them in detail. But what I would say is they really focus on aspects of what it means to be talking about selling data, what it means to be talking about anonymous data. And we think it's important that as part of this discussion, we have a very balanced and informed conversation about what those things mean, and we'll get into that a lot today. So what is depersonalized information, and is it the same as anonymous? Michelle's already drawn your attention to the diagram. This is taken from it. But what you'll see is, on the far left-hand side, we know things about Jane, like it was her birthday on the first weekend, and that she has a particular postcode. We know her name, and the records associated with that are identifiable. We can treat that information in ways that strip out some of those identifiers to make it less identifiable, and you can talk about aggregating all of that information, grouping it together so it's genuinely anonymous as you report the information. I suppose what I wanted to go into in a bit more depth was to explore really what this sort of information is. Now, this is an overly simplified description, but I just wanted to help make the point that depersonalized information is not completely anonymous. So here we've got a range of pieces of information that might be attached to any of our health records. Things around demographics, things around known conditions, and things around hospital activity. The information is useful because it's rich. But the more information we have, the more unique any record is. So in theory, it is possible to re-identify the record. That requires a lot of data, it requires a lot of effort and skill, and it is illegal, but technically and theoretically it is possible. And I want to give a quick example. Here on the hospital record is somebody who's 31, who's had 3 particular inpatient episodes at a hospital, and they're about birth, and they've got dates attached. This is about a person having 3 children, and if you knew the birth dates of them, you could infer, with some degree of accuracy, who it was. You might also spot this medicine, which is an antidepressant, and you might infer then that the person who you know has postnatal depression. Now, this is an overly simplistic example, but what I'm trying to highlight is it is possible to infer, without knowing your name, something about the record. Having said that, when Andy talked about this in the first weekend, he talked about never seeing personal information. And so there are levels of encryption, sort of encoding, that can get added to this so that it turns these fields into essentially gobbledygook. It is not impossible for people, hackers, or people with malicious intent to try and decode that. It is theoretically and technically possible, but it's very hard and it's illegal. What we can talk about then is not really whether we should be joining up information and using it for planning and research, but thinking about how to make this trusted so that you've got confidence that the information is safe, it's accessed in the right way by the right people at the right time. One additional point to note is that you have the ability to opt out of your data being used for research and planning, but there are some exceptions to that. It's in your pack, so I won't go through it, but I wanted to draw that to your attention. So to summarise and frame the day, we're really no longer talking about using identifiable information for the purposes of giving care, but instead we're talking about de-personalised information that is being used to do planning and research. There are a whole range of benefits, great things that come from this, and a whole range of legitimate concerns. What we need to hear from you in your discussions is what makes it acceptable and what makes it unacceptable, what makes it more and less trustworthy to do this, so that we can determine the right types of policy approach to do this safely and effectively on your behalf. So I hope you really enjoyed the discussions. That's all from me, and I'll hand back to Michelle.